Welcome to the Talking Shh podcast. That's right. We'll be talking about music, albums, live shows, bands we love, bands not so much. Again, we're talking shh. Join me, Scott Nokon, and Stephen James. Hey guys, we are back. This is Scott, Stephen James. It's been a couple weeks, right?
Yeah,
and it was needed. I think here we are in kind of the middle of summertime, and there's just life and time just to kind of reflect and get away a little bit. All those things have happened over the last last couple of weeks. There's been a lot of travel as well, which is nothing new, for sure. But I was able to see Stephen in person.
So much fun.
Yeah, it's been now it's 10 days ago, right? 10 days ago. It's just flies by.
Yeah.
So much my son got married, which is awesome.
Hey, you know what's amazing though is when I finally got to see Zach and his beautiful bride, and it was funny because she came up and gave me a hug. I'm like, oh my God, you're so tall.
She's tall, yeah.
I mean, well, so is Zach too. Did the UPS guy come by?
Right. It was the milkman.
And the milkman, but such a darling girl, and your son is such a professional. It was really nice to meet him because it was almost like. It was kind of like a starstruck thing for me with him. And it was like, oh shit, that's Zach. That is Zach Nokon, because we all have that same, that thrive for the heavy metal that you instilled into your son. And God bless you for that.
Yeah, I just, I don't know if I forced it. I didn't force it at all, but some things just naturally happen. So yeah, it was, well, generally speaking, because, Stephen and I are in two parts of the country, but, there was a very, very good reason, a celebration that we came together. So that was awesome.
Fun.
That was definitely
Thank
awesome.
you.
And
thank you again.
Yeah. And we saw a lot of buddies from years past, bandmates, friends,
and unforeseen circumstances.
And there was some unforeseen circumstances. Yeah. And that's just what happens. And let me just say real quick, and really what we're going to do, we had already planned on doing a kind of a recap of Back to the Beginning, the Sabbath and Ozzy tribute. And as we record, just 2 days prior, Ozzy passed at the age of 76. And, I was working during the day, which I tend to do. And a coworker came by my office and kind of stood in the doorway. He's like, Ozzy, and just said Ozzy. And I knew exactly what he was referring to. I just like, oh man, really?
I mean, 2 weeks later?
Yeah. So I've gone, and I wouldn't even say I've gone down a rabbit hole because I listen to Ozzy frequently. And I did pick up, truth be told, I did listen again a lot more intently over the past few weeks, even before his death a couple of days ago, just because of the concert that was upcoming. Right. And it was fun to go back and we'll talk about the different releases. And admittedly, I'm going to stay, though we can certainly go into Sabbath because that's a major part.
For sure.
Of his career. I'm more of an Ozzy solo fan.
I am too.
All of it across the board definitely paved the way for many bands to come. But in that, hearing that news, I felt something.
I was devastated.
And just like, okay, when he came out, and again, not talking about in 69, because that predates my arrival on this planet. I may have been somewhere else, but at least on this planet, the start of Black Sabbath predates that. I really got into Ozzy I was like 11, and I remember that because Blizzard of Ozz came out. So that was my first introduction to Ozzy. Then I went back forward and kind of backfilled over the next couple of years, Sabbath, and understood that and gained a much deeper appreciation.
Yeah,
still to this day, 1982, the release of Diary of a Madman. That's my favorite Ozzy record.
Hands down.
But all that, I still remember. What was the music club? You buy 10 cassettes or records for a penny. Was it Columbia Music House?
I think it was Columbia.
Yeah. So,
it was all paper written. It was funny.
The fact that they allow, and I signed up or my mom or dad, somebody signed up, but here's this 11-year-old. So I remember getting the Blizzard of Ozz cassette, and I went through more than a few, and it was always a matter of just riding my bike over to Music Plus. Where was it? It's like Golden West over in Westminster. That was the Music Plus, where we'd spend many nights, over the next decade kind of camping out back in the olden days, right? When you camp out for tickets, camped out for some Ozzy tickets too.
And just so everybody knows, I worked at Music Plus.
I did too.
And I became a manager and was in charge of the Ticketmaster computer, which was some big, giant, ugly.
It was,
Nobody would. I wish I had the wherewithal to take pictures of that shit back in the day, but I had. You would see people lined up outside for concerts, and I was like, "Let me get shit." Look, I just got second row for Iron Maiden and Vinnie Vincent.
Yeah,
It's like I was always first to pick the great seats, and I was like, "Oh, you want that? Sure, this is available." Interesting, but anyhow, just kind of fun to reminisce about Music Plus.
No, for sure. So yeah, and I know we talked about this in a past episode, but I want to spend just like, and you can time me on this to keep me honest, but let's spend a minute or two because I wanted to go back, Stephen, in an episode we did back in May of 2024, and in that we were talking about bands that should reunite,
and we did,
and I can't even say reunite to this
Isn't that
day,
amazing though?
But we were talking about this. So this is,
that's so badass.
So we were talking about this, May of 24 in one of the bands, and go back to, it's an early episode. So please, you can find all of our episodes streaming, Spotify, wherever you can stream podcast. You can also check it out, the video version on YouTube. It's all out there. We got stuff on Instagram. So there's our social media plug. May of 2024, bands that should reunite. And talked about Black Sabbath.
Yes.
And we kind of gave some we were very specific.
Yeah.
One, it has to include Bill Ward. It has to be the original lineup.
Well, but he could have kept his shirt on anyway.
Yeah, but he was feeling it.
Okay, I'm teasing.
And so back to the beginning from July 5th, in Birmingham, England, I was going to say they reunited, right, with Bill Ward.
That's crazy.
Geezer Butler, of course, Tony Iommi, and Ozzy, of course, fronting it. We also talked about, and I got to go back and look at this. Definitely the Bill Ward piece. Just the fact of them needing to get back and doing it was one.
Yeah.
And then Bill Ward. And did we go down the path? It's got to be. I won't say we said in Birmingham, though. We probably said it'll probably be in Europe. That would be awesome if it was in the United States. So we should go. Threw it out there, maybe going, I had some life stuff going on, so I didn't really get a pass to be able to go over there. And it would have been
I would have gone if I could have done it. I would have gone. You and I both would have.
Totally.
Like, let's go.
And so the significance of that is so much greater with Ozzy's passing. Now, I think you ask anyone, would there have been another show after?
Absolutely.
Maybe not. It's like I did have a thought after I was watching that. Go, wouldn't it be cool, selfishly a little bit, but just so you could experience in person that somehow he can rally and they do a select number of stadiums in the States. Because I live here, I'm like, oh yeah, they would do it in Nashville at the Titans Stadium. But
there's a couple of videos that are circulating, and I don't know if it's AI or not, but it's Ozzy saying basically, he's like, look, I'm dying. And I want everybody to be happy. And, he, from all of what I've watched over this past week, preluding to the show, Ozzy was just a decent human being. Got so much crap for whatever he was back in the day of biting the bat. It was like he thought it was fake and
right.
And look, I don't care. That doesn't faze me. What phases me is this guy's amazing ability to sing and write amazing songs. When you listen to those first 3 albums, unfortunately, Randy Rhoads passed. And I actually did get a chance to visit his gravestone about 5 years ago, which was very cool. I was like, that's Randy Rhoads. But the whole idea is that Ozzy was a genuine human being. The persona of this devil worshiping this and that never existed. It's the same thing with Iron Maiden. It doesn't exist. People that created that mantra of they're devil worshippers. No, Ozzy was and is, to me, still, even though he's passed, the godfather of heavy metal.
Absolutely. And a lot of the stories I remember, again, like I said, getting first being introduced to Ozzy probably when I was 11. Um, and it was awesome because 81, 82, Blizzard of Ozz right into Diary of a Madman. So I
Yeah.
kind of had like all this music, right in my face,
Sure.
yeah, at an early age, and going
Yeah.
back and revisiting it, then gaining a much, much deeper appreciation as I got into my teenage years, and certainly, now decades later, of just the impact, right? And
Yeah.
it was
Huge.
established, years in advance. But I just love the fact, and I'll say this, Stephen, because generally in our shows we have an idea of what we're going to talk about,
Right.
but from earlier in the week, we like
It's
I'm I'm
changed.
I'm speaking completely differently,
Absolutely.
tonight than I would have just 2 nights ago before his death.
Yeah.
And it's understandable. But in that, when you look
Just
back and
blown
you
away.
said The Godfather, it really is so impactful.
Absolutely.
On my, timing worked perfectly, for what it's worth, but was on Tuesday, did my radio show,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, well, of course, in the afternoon I heard what happened, and so um, took no time at all to pull a set together. In fact, I already
An
had one
amazing set, by
before.
the way.
Thank you. I had one already before, and there's probably, again, I could do another week of that with more songs, but it's each one. It's kind of this, certainly on the same record, but this time capsule, right? So this is us. This is, I'll speak for Steven too, but this is us just talking like with no notes, nothing prepared, just in what
No.
we experienced and how impactful Ozzy
Oh,
was.
yeah.
And is it kind of cliche that, after the death, and there's been a couple this week, right? And we'll talk about that in a second, just a little highlight. But, is that when someone becomes even bigger than what they are? I
Right.
don't know if that's even possible with Ozzy, right?
No.
He was
No.
already this cultural
No.
icon,
I agree.
and then going into, being in Sabbath and what Sabbath represented,
Yeah.
the birth of heavy metal. You hear Blue Cheer, you hear Zeppelin, talked about this on Tuesday, but truly what Sabbath did, what they represented, there was no
Oh,
one doing like kind of the
no.
sludge and the doom and just the heavy notes and the
No.
bass and the thundering drums and Ozzy's vocal, like all that. It's like that there was nothing comparable at all. And to
That's
this
not
day, it's
not
not
well.
comparable.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
And not to mention the amount of amazing musicians that played with him, right?
Yeah.
Tommy Aldridge, Rudy Sarzo, Randy Castillo, and God rest his soul.
Yeah.
I mean, Ozzy had some great musicians that play with him.
Mhm.
And there's a really interesting story about with Zach Wild about how he was such a huge Ozzy fan is why he got that gig.
Yeah.
I think because he was like, I'm standing in the footprints of Randy Rhoads. I mean,
Mhm.
Jesus, Mary and Joseph, look at that. And
Yeah.
look at Zach is the shit.
Oh,
This guy is a
absolutely.
phenomenal guitar player, but he was all about, I just want to hang with Ozzy. His whole persona is I want to hang with, and he calls him the boss, which is totally
Absolutely.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally cool.
Yeah. Completely.
But he's like, you're letting me take the place of Randy Rhoads, which we haven't talked about a lot of, but Randy Rhoads was the shiznit of Ozzy that catapulted him to where he was. Unfortunately, his demise. So
Yeah, it is. I was listening back to Diary of a Madman this morning, and the distinctive Randy Rhoads sound, right?
right,
And just the riffs and just the riffs and everything too. It's like it undeniable what it is.
absolutely.
And when it goes into it, just like the impact. So let's kind of just break this down to some, try to, I got a beverage in front of me, some logical kind of chapters, if we may. So
I wouldn't have it any other way, Scott.
so in the late 60s, right, Ozzy comes together with Sabbath. That they
Yeah.
established this sound that was unheard of before.
Yeah.
And I invite you, if you don't have it, I know we talked about this previously, but I'm looking over my bookshelf. There's a Geezer Butler, and I got to turn my.
I thought you were looking at my Iron Maiden shirt.
Yeah, there's over there too. Into the Void is the Geezer Butler biography.
Yes,
Such a good read.
yeah.
And the cool thing about it, it goes, obviously it's about Geezer, but Geezer is Sabbath. He did some solo stuff, and there's some really cool music he's worked on outside of it.
Right.
But there was such a in-depth detail of
Yeah.
his youth, his upbringing in Birmingham, meeting
For sure.
Ozzy, just a very just like worker mentality in that city, right? It wasn't it wasn't a wealthy area at all. It was very working class.
Yeah.
And that kind of was represented in their music. And when they came together, they would play in a room above a bar for like 8 hours, and
Yeah.
they essentially were like a house band. And who knows what they made, $20, whatever, but they were paid in beer too, and probably some bar
Yeah.
snacks. And so they loved it. These were like teenagers, but what they were able to do to transition into establishing this, for the most part, I'm not a fan of every Ozzy Sabbath record, but for these conversations, when they released the original, and the very first song, Black Sabbath, it just is ominous. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
And that's why people thought, it's like, again, the Prince of Darkness, which he wasn't known of then, and the Godfather of heavy metal, he wasn't known of then, but Black Sabbath, what was like a Boris Karloff, gee, I can talk, Boris Karloff movie from like the 30s, and they liked it because it sounded cool.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with, mystery and demons and bad. It was like, these are like just kind of probably dumb kids that happen to, play an instrument really well and were inspired by just life and put it together. So, that just tells you, it was just so genuine to begin with.
Yeah, it was genuine. And when you think about how that transitioned all the bands that are taking notes from Black Sabbath back then, a lot of people are talking about, it's like, oh, there wouldn't be Metallica or Slayer or all these other bands if it wasn't for Ozzy and Black Sabbath, which is just fucking cool. I mean, you got to have the wherewithal to go, you know what? These guys had it down, and everybody that, like, even No Con, let's say if it wasn't for Ozzy, there wouldn't be a No Con, right?
Different thing. Yeah. On Tuesday, I don't know if you caught this, Stephen. I kind of did, because someone put a question in the chat, and it was just about, what would metal music be like if Black Sabbath
I don't know if
never
it would
existed?
exist.
Yeah. And so I won't go through everything that I went through, but I will kind of come up with kind of a final piece on here. If Black Sabbath and Ozzy never existed, heavy metal would still exist, but it would be very different. It would be less dark and less sludgy, possibly more rooted in blues or prog, and perhaps delayed by a few years until someone else forged the path. But
interesting.
Make no mistake. Interesting too. Make
Yeah.
no mistake. Sabbath lit the fire. Without them, the metal soul would be missing something. So
I agree.
It's always like, well, if that never happened, what would happen? If that tree never fell, in this case, I think it's really kind of fun to look at. And you mentioned Metallica earlier. A band like Metallica might still have formed, but they would have had different roots, right? Perhaps more punk or hard rock driven, because there wasn't anybody else around like Sabbath to have that influence in that sound. So
and they kind of did off their first album was, when you think about fast music, to me, Metallica was the first that would do that kind of like thrash fast music. Did Slayer follow through? Yep. But when you go back, was it Ozzy and Black Sabbath that created that sound that said, okay, well, we can do this. Let's change it to that. Let's do this. Let's do that. I mean, God bless them. I mean, again, such a huge influence on the music today, the music from yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
They truly created something that is, in our realm, the most amazing music ever.
Absolutely. There's, the sound of the guitars, and this is in any metal, and there's so many subgenres, right, under metal, but just there was something about it that just resonated early on. Still to this day, I guess I can say, just because I like the sound, right? I guess you can keep it as basic as that, but in that, it just it made sense, right? I guess that's the best way to kind of associate it when you're, 11, 12 years old. It's like, okay, there's something about that, right? And then from there, you just further developed it. And then for me, there was layers to it, and then I got
Right.
further involved in understanding maybe more of the kind of the intent and the purpose behind it. I didn't really pay attention, and still don't entirely, to the lyrics, though, as a vocalist, and stuff that we work on. I've
Right.
certainly kind of dialed it up more in the recent years, but to me, it was always more about the kind of the sonic response, right?
Sure.
And that's definitely what Sabbath would bring. Uh, you
Yeah.
know, the like I said, this whole conversation we're having today, it has just a completely different significance. It was just going to be about back to the beginning. We were going to talk about all the bands that came together,
Yeah. But
and it was, and it still was and served as a celebration. Would there be, we'll put it out there, a follow-up, maybe not to the same extent, or maybe to the same extent, but a follow-up concert just celebrating the life of Ozzy. Many of the same artists, maybe more, would come back, and obviously the difference would be, Ozzy wouldn't play, but would there be some Sabbath songs that somebody would
yeah.
play? Possibly. And again, I don't know. Is like that is a once in a lifetime type of event, which I thought it was when I heard about it, right? We were like, oh my God, this could be like the greatest metal concert ever, which I
I
think it
watched all of it.
accomplished that. I did too. Would this be one of and you said it, Stephen, early on, well, they got to do pay-per-view, right? They got to do that. And they did,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
did that, and it's raised $190 million.
Isn't that amazing?
Look at
God
the
love him.
impact. Look at
God
the
love him.
impact it had.
Yeah, God love him for doing that.
Going to Parkinson's, going to other
Yeah.
well
It's
needed, well
amazing.
intended charities. So it's like,
Amazing.
wow, the t-shirts. I know you got the t-shirt, right?
Yeah, it's coming. But
And then there's a replica ticket. I think that was part of one of those packages, and then announced not too long after the show that they were going to release it in a theater. Now,
I
is
heard
that going
that
to
too.
change, or would there be an additional um, edit that includes more kind of highlight of Ozzy, right?
Yeah, there were a
Tied to
few
that.
guffaws when I was watching it because a couple of times it would stream out and I'm like, oh shit, like I can't miss it. Why is it streaming?
Yeah.
And you got to think about how many people were trying to stream that live.
Oh yeah.
And I get it that it kind of took a shit from time to time. It's like, it's like had it on the TV in my room, I had it on my laptop, I had it on my phone. I'm like, shit, why isn't it working?
Well, all your streams were bringing it down. Yeah, you had it.
Yeah, I was the one that fucked it up.
There's this guy with 10 different devices. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, you got when you pay for something, you got
No, I
got
get
to reap the benefits. Even the bands that did the little Lizzie Hale first of all,
Yeah,
that
one of the
fucking
super
girl
groups,
is
right?
an amazing singer.
Yeah,
Girl
that was really good.
yeah, she is just on fire. The drum solo thing kind of petered out. They were all kind of like I think they just kind of threw it together.
Yeah,
But Travis Barker was my favorite because he was just shredding it. But it is what it is. The
Right.
whole idea is that they're all there to honor the man, myth, the legend. Unfortunately, and it just still blows me away like it does to you that 2 weeks later after this gig, he passed away.
Absolutely.
And I got a couple of videos that he says he's like, I'm dying, there's no doctor that's going to change what's happening with me. But he's like, he was always about like, be you, be love, just have fun, be a metalhead. And I think to me that just drives a lot home for me when you think about your life and what's going on in life, and you're thinking, this guy was always the most genuine, loving guy, no matter what. Hats. My heart's broken, but at the same time, I'm honored to be able to be a part of that heavy metal genre that drove me to what I do today.
100%. God, we could talk forever. It's
absolutely.
in that, and it was pretty cool. And I wasn't sure, and kind of hit on this on Tuesday when I was playing his songs. I go, God, I wonder if MTV's going to do anything, because they don't play videos. So MTV Classic, and I don't know if they're still continuing it. I could turn it on, but they were for Tuesday and Wednesday at least, they were doing all day, all night Ozzy videos.
Awesome.
And so I go,
Awesome.
okay, that's cool. That's awesome.
Awesome.
And again, I can check after we're done here if they're still doing it. But it's like, okay, that's appropriate. That's fitting. Again, you're not doing anything else. It's like that their programming is so poor. So it's like good. There's something that I haven't watched MTV for that long of a single duration in many, many years. That was cool. And then also what was it was kind of just it was fun. I think in these things you look back at to say, was 76 is he lived a full life. He had so many adventures. He accomplished so many things. Years on this planet. There's many that live another 20 years, but there's others that don't make it that far.
Absolutely.
And so any time on this planet is cherished, and you want to maximize it. And I think when these events happen, you really need to reflect and understand are you wasting even a minute, a second, right? Certainly don't waste a day. Don't dwell on things that are out of your control. You have to let it go on. And again, is that easier said than done? Absolutely. Sure. But in regards to kind of the context of Ozzy, it was like, okay, watching those videos, I can reflect back like the first time I saw him in concert. I went to and I forgot about this until just the other day, that I had to sneeze. That was the first time.
Burp.
No.
I love it.
I forgot, Stephen, that I went to an Ozzy signing at Tower Records out like in Sherman Oaks.
Wow.
Probably like 85 or 86.
Oaks. Wow. That's
yeah. And so that was when he played with let's see, if it was 86, it would have been Metallica. So more than likely it was for Metallica.
And Jakey Lee was probably playing guitar.
He was still in there. And then 87 is when Zach came on.
Shit.
Yeah. But in that, it was like, oh yeah, I remember that. I totally forgot about it. That was many years ago. It's like, okay, that was really cool. I have no idea what happened to whatever I got signed. I tried to hold on to that stuff, but that just kind of went away. But in that, bring back the memories and really kind of, in that say, oh yeah, where was I, when I was listening to Bark at the Moon or Ultimate Sin? And then as his career progressed, being able to see him in 1994, when Deftones and Korn opened up for Ozzy, saw them at the Forum, and we got to go hang out at the Forum Club, and everybody was in there. So just all those things. It was just really, really cool. But I guess Ozzy and Sharon, they
love pigs on the floor.
They made such an impact in helping other bands, right? It was like, it was always a matter of putting your hand down and helping up the next artist.
Absolutely.
Bon Jovi, Rat, Motley Crue, Korn, Deftones. There's an extensive list for sure, but it was always a matter of, Metallica, but let's get them some visibility, right? Let's give them an opportunity to be seen in front of millions of fans. And it made careers for many of those artists, which is so cool. Ozfest, obviously, what was a major catalyst for kind of launching, a heavier set of bands out there
for sure,
for the world to see, because you could bring this road show, right? And I saw many of those, a number of Ozfest over the years. It was,
But he was the pioneer of all of that.
Yeah.
He was a pioneer of reality TV. He was a pioneer of having metal festivals. He did, and I know Sharon had a lot to do with it, but when you think about all the stuff what we see today is because of Ozzy. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, you go to metal festivals, there's 3 days and there's this and they're headlining this and that. That's because of Ozzy. He's the one that came up with that slash Sharon.
Yeah.
But that's amazing to go back to, that all these bands that are playing live, doing a summer festival. Again, it's technically not my thing where I want to be watching 12 bands play, unless it's something that just blows me away and I have to go see it. That is amazing that Ozzy created a lot of things. Credit that guy for reality TV, for doing festivals,
Mm-hmm.
for creating new bands, and being open and honest. I heard a story about a guy that wanted to interview him on KNAC, and he was like, he was so nervous to meet Ozzy, and Ozzy just came up and put his arms out and just gave the guy a hug. And they interviewed him, I think it was Stu Herrera, and he was just emotional to say, he just came and was him. Ozzy was just a genuinely wonderful, nice guy. People say, "Oh, he bit the head off a bat and he's a Satanist." I was like, "No, that's not the case." And we honor and love him, and will always be thankful for what he did for us.
Yeah. We're going to end it on here in just a second, Stephen. But I want to end with your comments right into this quote. Ozzy wasn't just the voice of heavy metal; he was its heart. He was the heart of metal.
Absolutely.
And though he's gone, his scream still echoes, and every amp turned to 11. Yeah. The music's going to be there forever to reflect upon, like you said, and that was excellent what you detailed out, the impact that he had on so many things. Will there ever be someone to, kind of take that torch? I don't know who the next one is. As
There's
far
only
as
one
having that
Ozzy.
significance, there won't be. But for this one, for this episode, guys, thank you as always for joining us. Again, we wanted to pay tribute to Ozzy. Again, it was going to be a reflection on back to the beginning, but obviously with the passing of Ozzy earlier this week, the right thing to do. And I'm glad we did it, Stephen. And I appreciate you and sharing your thoughts.
Absolutely. Thanks.
He made a difference in our lives.
Absolutely.
And I'm so appreciative of it. So guys, until next time, see ya. Thanks again for tuning in to the show. We'll be back every week with a brand new episode. Make sure you check us out on Instagram at Talking Show, and also listen on Spotify or wherever you can stream podcast. See ya.